Welcome back to the Getting Ripped podcast. Yes, some British names in amongst it this week. One that we're rather too familiar with, that Merlin always likes to talk about. And then another one he's not so much a kind of younger up and coming player now, as he's kind of been consistent for like the last couple of years at least. So
He is, yeah.
can't really act too surprised that he's kind of there or thereabouts. But let's start off with your number one player, shall we? Muzza, he's still going strong despite the metal hit.
Oh, I tell you what, just when we're talking about, the women's tour developing characters that are going to dominate, and the men's tour starting to lose that quality, one of the big four comes back and becomes, he looked. I tell you what, he didn't look his best self, but he played some tennis that I didn't think his movement was capable of throughout the week. It's just a shame he couldn't do it in two sets in any matches. He had to go the distance and everything. Although I say he didn't go the distance in the final because he lost in two sets. But yeah, Medvedev was a little bit too much for him in the end.
Medvedev was worried, I think, because he said when he was like 5-4 up serving for the match, he was like, "Oh, Andy's like come back in his last however many matches from the same position." We kind of talked about this before, isn't it? That he just needs to be a little bit more ruthless in some of his earlier matches, right? Because it just seems like he just still misses the odd kind of shot that, like a few years ago, I wouldn't expect him to miss. And then when that builds and builds and builds, that leads to him end up having to play these long ass matches, basically, and coming back and all that sort of stuff. Whereas if he can just put away some of those, not easy shots, but easier shots, then these games go quicker, and then you're not going to the back end of the set into tie breaks or 7-5s so often, and then that helps you later down the line when you get to semis, finals, and stuff. And I still don't think he's definitely not as quick side to side as he was, you're kind of watching it like, imagine how good he could be if he still had that lateral movement, because he's still got the forward and back kind of speed,
yeah, for sure.
side to side, it's just that little bit missing.
It's just a bit rougher for him because he's never going to quite have the strength he once had with that lateral movement, especially what they're resurfacing and all. But I mean, for me, the thing that this is what I said to you earlier in the week. The fact that we're talking about him like he's capable of winning these tournaments again is testament to how much he's pushing the conversation on his recovery and what the human body is capable of now, especially with innovations in things like hip surgery and whatnot. So the fact that he was in that final alone, the fact that he lasted through the week without becoming injured is incredible enough as it is. And that made me very happy, and it made me think, okay, well, sure, as you say, if he gets a bit more of a ruthless game plan in those earlier matches, and he also starts to play on the grass courts again throughout the grass court season, which is his preferred surface, we could genuinely see something quite exciting this summer. I don't know if you think that.
Yeah. Well, I think, like you said, the positive thing is that he's played a lot of big matches already this year, and he still seems in pretty good nick. Like previous years with the hip, he's played like a couple tournaments, and he's had to take a few weeks off because his body's just not right. But he seems to have built a little bit more robustness. I don't know exactly how, but I don't wonder if that metal's wearing away, but he just doesn't know about it. Hopefully not. Hopefully it's all right. Maybe just put a little bit of lubricant in there, keep him going.
Yes, the Bionic Man is definitely being pushed to the limits at the moment, and again, like I say, I'm excited. Like he's now winning. He's now won enough matches and has enough points that he can get into tournaments of his own right, rather than relying on wild cards, which is even better because he's right where he wanted to be. That was his goal, to be right up there fighting with the best, and he is. He's right up there fighting with the best. But that consistency still not quite there. Will we ever see it? But I don't need to see it. I'm happy watching at the moment. That's all I want.
Yeah, that'll make a big difference actually. Like not having to play such high ranked players early on, that might help him to
Quite right, yeah, exactly.
finish those matches a little bit quicker and then be a little bit fresher for when he comes up against, you know, the big guns. And then maybe we'll see a higher level even against these bigger players, and he might be able to get over the line. I mean, obviously he's showing it in like best of three, but when it comes to a Grand Slam, it's like those earlier matches, getting through those quicker becomes even more important, as we saw in the Aussie Open, where he was, you know, he played like 2 5-set matches straight away, and he was just buggered by the time he came up against Bautista. So who knows, like how far he could have gotten if he was a little bit fresher there. I was going to ask, what do you genuinely think he can actually achieve with like his body now, like based on his ranking improving a little bit? Like, do you think he can win, I don't know, like a Masters event? How far can he get in a Grand Slam?
I've got the answer for this. I think this week has proven that he could win a tournament like Queen's again. I think that is inherently possible. Tournament like Queen's, where you've got half the draw you'd normally expect of, you know, premium players, as it were, top 20. I think that is something that's genuinely what I alluded to earlier, is what we could see as exciting this summer, is that he could win Queen's and then make a deep run in Wimbledon. But the only issue is, if he won a tournament like Queen's, how fresh is he for a tournament like Wimbledon? So it could be like Richard Gasquet earlier this year, where, you know, he won, you know, one of the first tournaments he's won in years, and then goes straight into the Oz Open and like loses in the first round, and you're just like, oh, that was a bit of a, you know, bang and a whimper. But same could happen with Murray. You know, that's what happens with the older guys. Who knows? But he surprises us. You can't count him out at any point. So maybe more. I'd
be interested to see how he goes on the clay, because he said he sort of hinted at that, like maybe that he wants to do just like one more French Open or whatever. And obviously that was like the hardest surface for him to kind of get used to, or work out a best way to move on. So it'd be interesting to see how he goes on that. Maybe he'll be playing in, you know, some of those, because there's loads of Masters events on the clay in the lead up to the French and stuff. So that intrigues me a little bit, because yeah, like he's doing pretty well on the hard courts and faster courts, but the clay courts, that's going to be another kind of step up in challenge for him. So if he can start going deep in those tournaments, then you're like, oh, you know, this is really interesting now.
That would be an interesting marker. You're right.
Yeah, like it would be nice to see him win like even like a 250 or a 500 event. That like just that would warm the heart a little bit, I think. But Grand Slam wise, yeah, I think you're just looking at like a deep run in Wimbledon. If he gets to like the second week and maybe gets, I don't know, if he gets to like quarterfinals or something, then that's pretty exciting. But beyond that, don't really know.
Problem is, though, you let him get to the quarterfinals, he's not going to go down easy.
No. He's not going to go down easy whatever event he's playing, even if it's someone's back garden. He's not going to give up, is he?
That's the mentality. That's the mentality. I reckon he plays like touch tennis at home with his kids, and it's just like, no, Dad, let us win.
Yeah, or like football in the garden, he just like saves every shot. Like, kid just gives up after like 5 minutes.
yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, another British player that is probably more likely to win a Grand Slam or a big event anyway, as he has just done, is Cameron Norrie. He's played the same opponent 2 weeks in a row. Do you know the last time that happened, actually?
Oh, God, no, that's a stat I don't know.
2016. And who were the two players who played back-to-back finals against each other?
Oh. Was it Andy Murray and Milos Raonic?
It was Andy Murray, but the other one was... Come on, it's pretty obvious. 2016. Who were the main guys?
Well, Novak Djokovic, I would have thought, but
yeah, there you go.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
I know, because I was going to say I'm pretty sure he played Milos Raonic in Queens and then in Wimbledon. Oh, but that's not week to week, is it? Anyway.
Nah, it was. I think it was Rome and whatever, one of the other clay events back in when Murray went for the number one. Anyway, yeah. So it was Norrie versus Alcaraz version 2. This time in Rio. Obviously, the week before, I think Alcaraz beat him in straight sets, but they were two, pretty tight sets. And again, Alcaraz had just come back from injury, so it was pretty incredible, really, and he's already hitting some ridiculous shots. So you'd be forgiven for thinking when Norrie was a set 2-love and love 30 down that, you know, it was just going to be another straight sets win for Alcaraz.
Him again. Yeah.
But then 1 point could just turn it around, right? As
really
Norrie has shown. And then so Norrie managed to level up at 1-set-all, and then Alcaraz seemed to have, you know, like some sort of leg issue. I don't know if this might just be more related to, you know, like match fitness. Like he's come back from quite a few months off, and then he's gone back to back weeks. Like, I mean, obviously not straight away. He's obviously been training up to it, but the intensity that you got to play at for those 2 weeks back to back, that's going to take it out of you a little bit. And I think Norrie just
I don't see it becoming a long-term issue. I don't see it becoming a long-term issue. And quite honestly, he's basically playing on one leg for that last set. But I think Norrie, Norrie showed us that grit, that determination, that steel to latch onto something and keep going. And he had obviously the freshness to see it through.
Yeah, apparently he has like, didn't they say he had the lungs of like some sort of Olympic swimmer or something?
Yeah, probably.
The guy just will never stop. I think his serve and his forehand are obviously like his main kind of weapons, and then he's got that sort of the shovel backhand or whatever, which is it's solid. Like it's not really like a huge weapon. I mean, he can find some decent angles, but it's that kind of the angles he gets with the forehand, and that serve, like the slice serve, and then it's just that. Yeah, I think he won the match actually on a serve down the tee, but I don't know, how far do we think like Norrie can go? Like clay is not his kind of preferred surface either, and to see him kind of really stepping up there bodes pretty well, I think, going forward. So I don't know. Do we ever feel like he's going to win a Grand Slam, or is the furthest he can get like a semi-finals like he did at Wimbledon?
It's his fifth tournament win. It's his first at 500 level. Let's put it this way: by the same age, Murray had won infinitely more than that, and had been in many more finals. Again, I think this is where we're looking at. He's a very good bit part player on the tour in terms of we see good performances. We see weeks where he truly can dominate. He's a great player. There's no doubt about that. But I don't see anything in him that's got enough yet to, like Alcaraz, for example, to latch on, really grip into, especially a 2-week long tournament Grand Slam, and really see it through. But I could be wrong. We've seen upsets in the past, and you wouldn't necessarily have thought some players can win Grand Slams, you know, pre-Big Four as well, and they do. So again, maybe after the unstoppable ones have left the tour, which might be too late by that point. You never know.
Bloody hell, how long are they going to go on for? Novak must be close by this point. But yeah, who knows? Like he could go to 40 for all we know. I think the thing is with Norrie, like his highest level is like obviously not as high as some of these other top players. He is pretty consistent, and like mentally he's as strong as pretty much like most players out there. But I think it's harder for him to have like easier matches, especially, you know, like I don't know, early on in a Grand Slam where he can just dispatch people. I think his game doesn't kind of work that way. He doesn't quite have the weapons that other players have. So that makes it a bit more difficult when you want to go through, you know, the full 2 weeks of a Grand Slam. Again, I mean, he did really well last year in Wimbledon. He got to the semi-final. Obviously, like Novak was like the main guy. He was still there, but and Nadal was like a little bit injured. So I don't know. He could make another deep run at Wimbledon. French Open, like second week, I think would be pretty decent for him. Obviously he's improving on the clay, but I just think there's other players, obviously Alcaraz, you know, Sinner. These guys are I think they've just got more weapons, and his weapon is just his mentality. So hard to say really, but I think just again keep trying to push into the latter stages of these slams. And who knows? Maybe the draw will open up in like one of them where someone gets injured, or the big two or big one is not there anymore, and then he's got a bit of a chance. But I think it's more hope than expectation. But he's doing really well. So
He's doing really well. He's flying a flag for British tennis when, you know, it looked for a little while that post Murray we might not quite have any flagship individual on the men's side to be able to do that. But yeah, he's doing it quite well.
on the women's side, Swiatek, she's didn't she lost the final, didn't she? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the second final in a row, I think, that she's lost because she lost to Pegula last week. So even the top players, they are still beatable. They do still have chinks in their armor. Do we feel like this is just a blip, or is there something more worrying going on here? Obviously, she got knocked out in the Aussie Open as well. I think that was the quarterfinals. Yeah, what's going on here? Like, are we seeing the start of a demise, or is it just a little blip in the road? What do we think?
I think it's just a blip in the road. to be as unstoppable as she was for so long, I think it does take a specific level of fitness that it's quite hard to find on the regular. I mean, you saw what it did to Murray when he had that unstoppable year, for example. You've seen how Serena over the years has had peaks and troughs in her dominance as well. Like it's never been the way Roger Federer once did it, sort of 5 solid years of complete domination. So I think, and again, like even Maria Sharapova in the early years, like she was winning, but she wasn't winning everything on the tour, for example. So I think we can forgive her for having, getting to a final and maybe not quite overcoming and getting through it. I mean, she won in Qatar, she didn't win in Dubai. Again, this is what happens, isn't it? And this is why the tour's so interesting, because it would probably be boring if she won everything. Although we'd be talking about how amazing she was, but we still are.
Oh yeah, she did win the final last week. Yeah, my mistake.
Yeah, I thought you got that wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, no, so yeah, she's allowed to lose the odd final. No, the intensity and aggression that she plays with, like, it's just it's hard to do that week in, week out and over an extended period of time. Like last year she did win like 30 odd matches in a row, right? And then she lost at Wimbledon after that. So it's like, she is only human at the end of the day. But she is kind of still setting the standard for the women's game, and it's hopefully, just pushing those other players on as well, just below her, to try and get up to her level. And I think we saw at the Aussie Open as well, like there are players that can match that level. It's just whether they can match it on a consistent basis, really. She's doing it, most weeks during the year. And it's up to these other players to try and be able to find that and compete with her even in these 250, 500 events week to week and get to the semis and the finals. So like she's still the trailblazer, if you like. But you got players like Pegula, and we talked about Rybakina before as well. But then she seems to like fade off a little bit and then come back. It's if you're going to be number one, if that's your ambition, then you got to be getting to the semis, finals of like these tournaments pretty much every week, because that's what it's going to take to knock her off the number one spot.
And it goes to show how cutthroat the world really is, and the mental challenges that come alongside that. Like we've seen it on Breakpoint, for example, the Netflix documentary. I mean, it takes something incredible. And the funny thing is, you always see like Swiatek in these interviews. She always seems just so down to earth and relaxed. She doesn't seem like this extremely regimented, steeled person, but evidently when she steps on the court, she is. And sometimes maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's the separation that who she is on the court is someone that's a little different to the personality off the court. I always quite like to see and understand those differences for players.
Yeah, I'd like to see a little bit more. Of like what she's like off the court, maybe in that Breakpoint documentary. But she doesn't, like you said,
she's a Friends fan.
She's a Friends fan. There you go.
Yeah. That warmed my heart at least.
She doesn't seem to have like the weight of the world on her. She seems pretty relaxed and calm, right? And obviously until she gets on the court. So she's obviously good at finding ways to like switch off, which is one of the main challenges, right? Which we saw with some of the other players, that you kind of almost, it's really hard not to always be thinking about different parts of your game and stuff, and then that just kind of wears you down over time.
And some people feel the burden, the weight of the world on them, for example, off the court, whereas evidently she doesn't appear to be. If that is the case truly, then she hides it very well. But I think that, again, as you say, it's very important that she maintains that side of things, because all of the world's best, like Roger Federer, for example, when he was at his best, he was always laughy, jokey, down to earth, relaxed in interviews. He was never quite, and you see the same with Novak Djokovic now. Whether someone might tell me it's an act or not, he's laughy, jokey. It's not this same personality you see on the court, and you go, wow, I wouldn't want to find him on a dark street. No, actually, you would. He's a lovely guy, and I think that's the same for any great champion.
Yeah, I think Federer said that like one of his favorite things on tour was just like going for dinners and stuff with friends and family, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, making it fun, right? Because obviously it's a lot of traveling and can be like pretty fatiguing, but like making the off-court stuff a bit fun and taking your mind away from it if you can is the way to have longevity, right? Like you said, like the way Novak's doing it as well. But it's also kind of simultaneously like knowing that it's your career and it's like super important in that respect, but also like not taking it too seriously on the other hand, like when you're off the court and just like saying it's just a game or whatever, like trying to bring a bit of levity to it.
But you relate that to any other job out there in the world. I don't go home and think about genetics constantly and worry and wonder like what's going to happen and all that sort of stuff. I try and switch off. I do something different. All of these different things, that helps me be better at my job during the time, because I'm not burdening my mental space with it at all the time. It'd be the same. It'd have to be the same for anyone. Like, people like to clock off, and it's very important that they do, because otherwise you lose that focus. You might lose that passion.
I wonder if they have they have dreams about tennis, or like we've had with coaching, just waking up in the middle of the night, like I've got to feed balls. Yeah. Oh god,
they're quite scary actually when they happen, like, because they're very, very real.
You think it's real?
Yeah, you think it's real.
I fully got up in the middle of the night and like put on my shorts and like, oh, I'm off to work, and then just like woken up in the morning. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Anyway, let us know in terms of the British players. Obviously, we've talked about today. Let us know what your thoughts are on like how far are they going to get. Can Murray win like a Masters event? Can Norrie win a Grand Slam at some point? And obviously, if you've enjoyed this podcast, follow it on all the different podcast platforms, and then on YouTube, like it, share it around, and subscribe. And we will see you in the next one.